Hello and welcome to A Course in Miracles 365. I'm your host, Tomas Garza, and wherever you're joining me from today, I'm happy to have you with me. Now, we have had people literally joining from all over the world, from several parts of Europe, North America. So wherever you happen to find yourself, catching this live or on the replay, I want to welcome you. If you've been watching this live stream, I've been doing it for just shy of 40 days now, and it's every day. So what we're doing is we're going through the workbook for students of A Course in Miracles. Now, some of you may be familiar with A Course in Miracles. There are people watching this live stream that have been a student of this course longer than I have. So it found me in 2013, and for the last 8 years, it has been really the centerpiece, one of the along with a meditation practice that I've had for a long time, it has been the centerpiece of my spiritual practice. And I'm happy, very happy to be able to offer my experience with you. Now, I do intend for all of these live streams, they're short if you're just tuning in for the first or second time, about 15 to 20 minutes. So it's a half-hour time slot that moves around every day. So what I want to say is I welcome dialogue and interaction on this live stream. So those of you who have been tuning in will know that there is always time on this stream for comments and questions. So we're on lesson 30 of the workbook today, and the subject matter is vision, true vision, what that is and what that involves. And also we'll be talking about joining, especially as it is referenced and talked about in A Course in Miracles, and projection, as in psychological projection. So those are a lot of themes. So if you are tuning in and you have specific questions about this workbook lesson, right, or about the subject matter of vision, projection, joining, feel welcome to type them into the comments here. So I'm going to speak a little bit about lesson 30 and my experience with this material. And then toward the end of the live stream, we'll take those questions and comments and I'll pop on and say hello. So feel welcome to put that in there, questions, comments, anything like that. And if you're catching the replay, feel welcome to do that anyway. Here, type a comment in. I check them several times a day. So I will catch your comments and respond to you as best I can. And all of the answers here, well, we come up with the answers ourselves in practice. So, lesson 30. All right. God is in everything I see, everything, because God is in my mind. That's the lesson for today. Now, you'll recall yesterday's lesson 29, God is in everything I see. So you'll notice, especially if you've done the workbook more than once, that the ideas for the day, the practice ideas that we work with day in and day out, are cumulative by design, deliberate design to build upon one another. So we begin to retrain our minds. We change our minds essentially from a fear based mindset to a mindset based on love. The workbook does it systematically. It doesn't say that you have to run off to the Himalayas, sell all your belongings, which I don't recommend, and just become a hermit monk and have a blinding flash. No, it's not like that. This workbook is intended to work with any spiritual practice that you currently have, whatever form that looks like. If you are practicing one of the traditional world religions like Christianity or Islam, something like that, this works with it. It works with anything. It is universal spirituality. And in fact, it can augment your practice of another spiritual tradition. Now, if it's yoga or meditation, something like that, this absolutely goes hand in hand with it. These lessons are applicable to all of us because they talk about universal truth. In other words, absolute truth, ultimate truth, the reality of our being. And you can sum it up in two words: God is, period. I'll say that a lot. Yeah, again and again and again, because again, as adult learners, we need to hear things 25 different times in different ways on different days when we're in a different mindset, because we might be receptive to something today that we weren't receptive to yesterday. And tomorrow we could finally learn a lesson that we're not receptive to right now. And that's perfectly okay. That's the way it works. So God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. So, well, what we're doing here is we're laying the framework in the workbook for true vision. Now, true vision is not through the body's eyes. In the body's eyes, and we've studied biology, right? If you studied biology, you know that really it's kind of a mirror for a reflection of what we're appearing to see out there. True vision is actually internal. Think about how our minds work. It's with the mind, not with the body's eyes, that we truly see. Because think about it, we can truly picture strong, powerful memories from, let's say, from this lifetime, right? If you had a picnic in the mountains or the woods when you were 9 with your family, and it was a beautiful day, then you might recall that beautiful day in detail, in exquisite, sharp detail. You might recall what the trees looked like. Was it in the fall? And maybe there were some deciduous trees with leaves changing. Maybe it was in the height of summer and everything was green. Maybe you had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Maybe you all were laughing. Maybe you had a dog with you. Right? We may recall certain of these details. And that was a long time ago, maybe for some of us, right? Years ago, decades ago, and we recall it right now in our minds. You know, we were recalling it in our mind. We're seeing things, really seeing, truly seeing them with our minds. It's not dependent on the body's eyes. Now, if you're coming from a background that's heavily scientific, this might be a bit of a challenge to you, and that's okay. Again, if you're just joining us, the workbook does not require that you believe any of these ideas, simply that you practice them. Belief is not required. It's not. It's not required. Simply show up, practice the idea as best you can according to the instructions. That's it. That's all. And what happens? Well, we begin to see things differently. So that's real vision. It's not dependent on the body's eyes. So, what are we trying to do here with this lesson? So we engage in something that I've talked about, and you probably know something about, maybe a lot about, and that's psychological projection. We project in this world. Think of how we have a tendency sometimes to blame other people. We blame other people for our lot in the world. We blame the government. That's a favorite of all of ours, right? No matter where you live, blame the government, blame politicians, right? Blame your elected representatives. Sure, right? They're convenient. Yeah, blame someone else. We place blame because we don't like feelings of guilt. We don't like to feel guilty. We don't like to feel frustrated or sad or angry. So we do what we can to get that away from us. We put that off. We put those uncomfortable feelings off on other people rather than own them, as there are feelings, and just sit with them and release them. That's the power of spirituality. That's the power of forgiveness as it's talked about in A Course in Miracles. That's the power of self-inquiry. Non-dual self-inquiry is the power of any authentic spiritual tradition. Is it teaches us to sit with and accept and own all of the baggage, right? We've created it, we can get rid of it. Now, how do you get rid of it? Well, you don't actually get rid of it. You don't toss it out. You don't put it outside of you. That is what we have a natural tendency to do. That's projecting, right? It's getting things away from us. That's what is meant by spiritual bypassing, is trying to end around all of the nasty stuff by pretending it doesn't exist, right? By pretending that it's all rainbows and unicorns. Well, spirituality involves beautiful feelings. Yes, yes, it does. However, the real action is in clearing obstacles. And A Course in Miracles says this, it's clearing obstacles to the presence of love. That's who we really are. So if we don't acknowledge all of these so-called darker things, then how can we actually awaken to who we really are? Well, we can't. We can't. We can circumvent things and go around and end around things by saying, okay, well, I want to just positive only. Okay, I want to ignore this. We tend to ignore things. It's a form of projection, right? We're putting it outside of us. Actually, it's inside of us and it's coming up for us so that we can release it. This is, and we've seen this recently in the workbook, everything is for our own self-interest. Everything we see. Therefore, God is in everything we see. Yesterday's lesson. God is in everything we see because God is in our mind. So what we're doing by practicing this lesson today, lesson 30, is we are, rather than putting things outside of us, we're looking at them and we're thinking about them and we're choosing to see them for what they are. We're choosing to, and it says this, join with what we see. So this is joining that we're talking about in A Course in Miracles. We want to see love, that we want to see happiness and peace. But we're practicing the idea, whether we're actively resisting it or not, doesn't matter if you are. We're practicing the idea that God is in everything that we see. The workbook recommends to do this with our eyes closed so we can think about different places, different places geographically, different worlds, different epochs in time. Right? You can think about the picnic that you had when you were 9. You can think about your old dog that you had when you were a child. And it's not dependent. Vision is not dependent on space. It's not dependent on time. In other words, it's not dependent on the body's eyes at all. The body's eyes reflect only what appears to be in front of us and around us right now. Real vision is much broader than that. In fact, it has no boundaries and no limitations at all. Today's workbook exercise helps introduce us. If this is an introduction for you, it helps introduce us to this idea. And you just practice it according to the workbook. Right? It's a, the workbook says that, okay, it's a new kind of projection. Yes, it's a different take on things. Rather than trying to put things outside of us and seeing them as outside, see them as inside, because they all are, right? Vision's all internal. And what happens when you acknowledge and release some of these things, feelings of guilt, frustration, sadness, fear? You feel lighter. In fact, you are lighter. You are lighter because these feelings of guilt and frustration, what people want to label as negative emotions, they're just coming up. There's nothing good or bad inherently about them. They're just part of our experience. Now, if they make you feel this way, you can bring them up for release. And that's what forgiveness actually is. We can consciously decide right now in the present moment to release feelings of guilt, frustration, anger, fear, grudges that we've held against ourselves for a long time, negative self-concepts. Yeah, grudges that we've held against other people, family members, political parties, a pandemic, a virus, for example. We've all held countless grudges in this lifetime, in our current lifetimes, not to mention any lifetimes that we may have had prior and may have after this. In fact, there's so much to work with that we find when we really delve into spiritual practice that there's no shortage of raw material for awakening. All of this is coming up is for a reason, and that is for you to release it. And what happens? It keeps coming up again and again until we do. That's the nature of it. So let's take some comments and questions here on the stream while we have time today. And thank you again, all of you who have joined us. Let's bring these up here today. Robert, hello, how are you? Good day, thank you for joining in. And Hope, hi, how are you? Good afternoon, yes. Now, Hope, you're are you in England, right? I think that you are, right, in England, and Robert's in Romania, so thank you all for joining us from Europe. It's a pleasure to have you all here. And Christina writes, yes, being present and keep feeling the love, stay focused. Yeah, stay focused, right? It's hard for us to do, isn't it? Because our minds are really undisciplined. I mean, if we really think about it, when you sit down to meditate for 5 minutes, how many extraneous thoughts do we have? We're thinking about tomorrow's lunch and dinner. We're thinking about how our knee hurts, right? Or something like that. We're thinking about how our stomach's growling, or we're thinking about how the pool vacuum behind me is jammed up because there was a windstorm yesterday and a bunch of palm fronds blew into the pool and sticks and things, which is actually true. So after this, I'll be out there to unclog the pool vacuum. So we could be sitting in meditation thinking about just that, right? And being present involves returning our minds to love again and again and again. I mean, we can characterize our whole life as a living, breathing, walking meditation. Anytime we're distracted from the object of meditation, which in formal seated meditation could be something like your breath or a mantra or sound or an object or something like that, have love be the object of our meditation. Anytime we notice ourselves distracted, we bring our awareness back. Maybe that helps. Yeah, and yes, thank you all for tuning in. Yeah, I hope you're in London. Okay, cool, thank you. Yes, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, well, here I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and wherever you are from in the world, thank you all for tuning in here. If anyone has any comments or questions relative to this lesson of the workbook, I'm happy to take them here in the time that remains. And if that occurs to you after the fact, no problem. I'll look in the comments. Any questions or comments about your own spiritual path in general? Because A Course in Miracles is not just limited to the book, A Course in Miracles. It's universal, so it applies to anyone's life. It's universal. It applies to anyone's life, any spiritual tradition, whatever your practice or walk may look like. This has universal truth that does most definitely apply. All right, so we'll take one more comment here. And Cindy, hello, says, Cindy's my wife, by the way. She says, I'm glad you just said that. I was going to go out and do that, but I will let you take care of it, smiley face. I'll bet you will. All right. Yeah. Actually, I have a 10 o'clock, so I might not get to it. You might be doing it after all. Yeah. We're talking about the pool vacuum here. So, guys, thank you all for tuning in here. This is a daily live stream. So if you're just joining us, feel welcome to just check. I want to have you check the show guide on Enlightened World Network every day. It's the pinned post, the very first post on the Facebook page that shows the day's programming. So this live stream actually bounces around. It's different times every day. So thank you all for tuning in today. And I will see you tomorrow, and we'll keep moving here in the workbook for students. Have a great day, everyone.